This is Musings and Counsel from London Baker Law with Debbie London Baker.
You never know when your last day on earth is, and you have got to make plans. And there's no better way than attorney Debbie Baker. Good morning, attorney.
Oh my gosh, it's formal this month. Good morning, Steve.
I didn't mean to start the show
I'm
off.
teasing. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Well, that's quite an intro about your friends.
Yeah, I thought about you this past week because, you know, we all think we're indispensable. I mean, nothing's ever going to happen to us. But when you're in your 50s, you really don't think anything is going to happen health-wise.
No. And
you end up, I don't know if they had any kind of estate planning or not, but I think, and I'm not going to get political, but I have my reasons why I think that they are no longer with us. But I'm trying to make the point not to wait. Pick up that phone, call Attorney Baker, go sit down with her, and make sure that not only that you've done estate planning, but it's been done right. Would you not agree, Debbie?
Well, I agree that it needs to be done and done right. Whether they have to sit down with me or not is, I mean, that would be really interesting. But anyway, I definitely agree that it's easy to think we're invulnerable. It's easy to think it'll never happen to us, whatever that means. Car accidents, motorcycle accidents. It just never occurs. Whether we're the cause of it or we're the effect of it, it generally doesn't call. I had a call this morning from somebody who I don't know how old she is, but she's having brain surgery in 2.5 weeks. And it occurred to her that maybe she needs to put something in place, just for now, so people can take care of her now. And then, heaven forbid, God forbid, that she doesn't come out of the brain surgery, or she doesn't come out of it well. And I really do appreciate it. It's hard for people to get their minds around that it might happen to them. And it's really easy to avoid until they run into a situation like you just described with you, Steve. Now, you told me months ago that you and Sophia have everything in place. But the kind of thing is that this is that situation that you just had is also the kind of thing that wakes people up and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to Joe. I just saw him yesterday.
Right.
And he ran a marathon last month and now he's not here. Maybe it's time to put things on paper. So, yeah. Yep. And we've talked about this before too. I had somebody I met recently who's got older children, meaning teenagers over the age of 18. And I said, your teenager needs something. And why? I said, well, now that they're 18, you can't do anything for them anymore. And that doesn't drive fathers nearly as crazy as it drives mothers that, stereotypically can't do anything. So yeah, that's really sad. And years ago, I heard a guy talk about life insurance, and I still don't understand life insurance. But I remember him telling the story of he was a top producer in the industry, and he'd been at a conference, and somebody talked about the fact that they had been a board member somewhere and had felt out of discomfort not to ask everybody on the board if they had their life insurance in place. And then one of their members died, leaving two young children, and the board raised enough to pay for a funeral, but there was nobody delivering a check. And he never left anywhere ever again without asking people if they were covered. And I've taken that. I ask everybody, do you have a plan? And some people say yes, some people say no. The people who say no, I said, listen, it doesn't matter if you work with me. It matters that you work with somebody and get it done, because you leave your family in a horrible situation, which you would not choose to leave them in. It's hard enough to grieve, but don't make it harder by not having directions.
So I hope
all your friends had it in place.
Yeah, I think about, and we've talked about this, as wealthy as Prince was, and he had all these advisors around him, didn't even have a simple will.
Well, people do think, my estate can handle it. There are people with probably substantial means who think, well, my estate can pay for it, which is true, but it's the emotional grief of the paying. Even if, recently I've had two or three people say, I have a will and everything goes to my child. I went, okay, everything goes to your child, but if it's just that, all you have in your will is my child gets all my money and my child gets my home, that child is going to have to go to court to get the right to have it. Well, he's my only child. I said, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that it's not it's not a simple handoff. It's not a simple handoff to your
Yeah.
child. And there are things you can do which makes it a reasonably simple handoff. But without doing those things, it becomes complicated. And I met a couple last week who were witnesses for a friend of mine, and they have things in place. And I said, well, what's with your house? Well, our son will get the house when we die. I said, well, again, not easily. And they said, well, when we did our original documents, why don't people tell us those things? I said, I have no answer for that. I really have no answer for that.
Right.
I've met people who financial planners did not say they had to name beneficiaries or have allowed them to name minor children as beneficiaries. I can't answer those questions. I don't know. But actually, in fairness to the professionals involved, you and I, Steve, have both had numerous occasions where people have told us things and we either can't hear them or we won't hear them. And then all of a sudden, when it becomes relevant, it's like, why didn't you tell me? And
Right.
I know this has happened countless times with my husband. I'll say, Steve just told me this, and I'm probably pretty certain you've told me that a dozen times over the last year. And he's finally learned to say, I'm just glad you finally heard it. So maybe these people do tell them, but they don't have
Right.
another answer. And so in fairness to the professionals, but let's see, on October 5th, I will have had my license for 8 years. And when I tell people, I said, I didn't know this stuff 8 years ago. There's no reason you should know it at all. But you need to talk to somebody about getting it done.
This has been Musings and Counsel from London Baker Law. Learn more at londonbakerlaw.com. Thanks for listening.